Hi everyone, a guy trying here, and welcome to Feast of Thoughts. This is a video I'm hoping to make near the launch of each new altered set to talk about my first impressions. For now, I'm going to give my top 3 commons and rares of each faction from Whispers from the Maze, so let's get into it. Axiom was in a pretty dire state going into Whispers, with many hoping that the set could breathe new life into the faction. I believe there's a bit of a struggle within the faction's own design space, being split too much between Sierra permanent decks and the reserve focus of Traced or Subash to have a cohesive card pool. Due to this split nature, I'm actually going to give my top 2 commons, top 2 rares, and a card whose rarity change highlights the division within Axiom. The Grims offers versatility, allowing you to discard opponents' permanents or sacrifice your own to get more board presence. It can slot easily into most decks and fit well in moment-to-moment decisions. Bugfix can spend counters you control or in reserve to create a brass bug. Targets can range from Kellon Cylinder, a designer drone in reserve, or even Traced himself. These cards are great examples of cards that can find space in both gameplay patterns of Axiom. Rare Refinery and Cup of Sap will not find their way into every Axiom deck, but will bolster the reserve decks that were weakened by the Errata of Haven and hopefully restore power and player base to those heroes. Which brings me to Bug Out Bag. The common functions well as a 2/2/2 for 2 that can support permanent or robot synergies, and is an overall playable card. The rare bumps the cost up to 3, makes the bug generation only from hand, and adds a resupply from reserve. This, on paper, is a strict downgrade from the common to balance around Sierra. When you play the rare from hand in Sierra, you can generate an additional brass bug, giving her a powerful total of 4/4/4 for 3. From reserve, she can get 2/2/2 for 2 as well as a resupply. That's great for Sierra, but it does cause some issues. Changing the brass bug to only be from hand means it no longer works with cards like Dr. Frankenstein or Mechanical Training. And while Sierra enjoys resupply, Traced and Subash are more reliant on it, but they lose most of the benefits of the original common if they upgrade. And on top of that, the Ordis Oof gets an unimpeded rare that Traced and Subash could only dream of. Both versions of Bug Out Bag are cards to look out for in Whispers, but the design itself is also something that, to me, highlights a larger problem. Bravos was fairly well positioned coming into Whispers, having placed 3rd in the Trial by Frost Tumult Championships, but there's still plenty of room to grow. My Bravos commons are Talarian Skater, Aoife, and Swift Jin, which are all focused around the new keyword Scout. One of the benefits of Scout is that it can be pretty non-committal. You can give a character a boost with Skater for 1 and then potentially play it again if it suits you. This is admittedly a bit tougher with the higher cost of Aoife and Swiftjin, but they are also able to trigger Tsadi to give you a card draw. I don't think there's anything particularly flashy about any of these, but they are solid cards that can support the decks they fit into. For our rares, I'm going to start with Merry Reunion, which can help with card advantage, a massive problem Bravos had in Beyond the Gates that was alleviated a bit by Haven Sarengar, but by no means solved. In my opinion, Reunion is comparable to Magical Training, as it can potentially draw you 2 cards if they are characters. You can also choose to keep the cards in reserve if it's more beneficial to you. Rare Duel of Grit is a top contender for the best removal in the game, as it can discard any character under the right conditions. The fact that Duel isn't limited to characters that cost less than yours means that it is incredibly easy to have a character that is equal hand cost to your opponent's most problematic character. And last but not least, we have the Hunger. When I initially saw the Hunger, I thought this is an awesome but unplayable design. However, it is quickly becoming a centralizing card in the early meta that can wipe out a player's chance of winning if they don't play around it. Lyra has always been in a weird position. It always seems to have some top representation, but still was second to last in the tumults. Because of the identity of randomness and gambling, I do think the faction has some issues remaining consistent throughout tournament rounds. X marks a spot is unconditional character removal that can ease the burden of any expedition you might be contesting. While the character will most likely return at some point, there are plenty of times where X marks the spot can disrupt and annoy your opponent's plans. Just because that character fit their curve perfectly this turn doesn't mean that'll be the case in the future. Plus, you'll know what's coming. Lyra Contortionist can sit idly in your reserve when you need it. All 3 Lyra heroes can struggle with overflowing reserve, so a character that you don't have to worry about that with is just added value. The last Lyra common is a bit of a twofer. Bliss, Keytarist, Common, and Rare function the same, but the decks you build around them can be very different. Because of the requirements each add, the deck around them shifts, but they remain just jamming either way, waiting to get you that added card draw. Our first rare is a great include in either Keytarist deck, Yzmir Engraver. Engraver works as removal on a body, a 0 stat, and an artist, so he can fit into multiple decks you might want to run this season. Scribbling Starfish is another 1-drop you can put into your deck with the added upside of drawing a card from reserve most of the time. While the meta is slowing down a bit more with the new season, 1-drops will always be powerful. Our last rare is Tech Lab Unit, which fills an important role of Lyra landmark I might actually want to run. While I'd normally only recommend running it in Fen because of the rare slots it takes up, it can be run in any hero and so deserves a spot on my list. For the first 2 sets, Muna has been too peaceful and giving when it comes to their gameplay. Most of their focus has been on tending to their own plans instead of interacting with their opponents. Your average Muna card was more likely to help the opposing hero instead of hinder them. I don't know what Dark Whispering shifted the tide in Muna, but I'm glad these cards were added. The Little Mouse and Requiem give crucial interaction at common rarity that can easily be upgraded to rare for more frequency if the deck list has space. The third common is Flore, who can function as a mini Muna Bastion and just generally help the boost anchor strat that Tasia has been going all in on. The rares are a continuation of this, with Leo and Bravo's Pentacar adding additional sabotage. I might be hammering the point too much with putting both of these in my mentions, but I mean, in the first 2 sets, there was only 1 card in Muna that could sabotage, and it was Axiom Scrambler. Muna needed this. Finally, we have Sap Duende, which can take boosts from your opponent's characters and put them onto your anchored ones. But you can also use it to swap your own boost from a character that'll be leaving the expedition this turn as well. And it draws a card, which is always helpful. Ordis has been the most winningest faction since Altered's release, but that doesn't mean it doesn't deserve good cards in each set. We just have to hope that with each set that Ordis can still get new cards to play, while other factions are lifted up to their level. That being said, Ordis did get one of the best commons in the game with License Withdrawal. Most strategies right now use some amount of boost to reinforce their boards, with quite a few fully relying on them. Because common License Withdrawal has no restriction on cost, it can often trade up in value, and even has the modality to take out a pesky permanent if needed. Ordis Accountant is an at-rate 2-drop that can passively gain boosts in reserve, and then be used for a big body or to sleep a character. And rounding out our commons, we have Aegis Templar. Templar has the benefits of Scout that I mentioned earlier, and can give 2 boosts to Ordis continuous supports like Accountant for 1 mana. Our first rare is Conscription, which can function well in any Ordis deck, but is especially powerful in Ghoulrang. Most of the time it should be able to create 2 Ordis recruits, letting it be at rate for stats, but has incredible upside in matchups like Fen or Tasia. Rare Mesektet is the card that has finally driven Ghoulrang into high viability. Once set up, this landmark can slow down opponents, keeping Ghoulrang in the game until she can eventually overwhelm them with boosted tokens. And our last mention feels a bit more like an honorable mention, but Staff Clerk can function well in any Ordis hero. But if Waro is able to see any meta relevance this season, I think it'll be on the back of Staff Clerk. Which brings us to our final faction. Yzmir was a strong contender in the last season, being only slightly less dominant than Ordis. It's actually the faction I won one of my Tumult championships with. Evanescence is comparable to one of the most consistent removal pieces in Altered, Off You Go. While the upfront decrease from 3 to 2 hand cost does limit its power initially, the growth can make it better from reserve. This will definitely not replace Off You Go without a serious meta shift, but Evanescence can complement it well. Scholar's Vault is an overall unassuming card when you think about it. Yes, it increases reserve when a spell is in it, but most Yzmir spells cost more from reserve anyways. It does let spells sit there until you have recursion, but I think the main benefit of Scholar's Vault is that it's a cheap, common landmark that has literally any upside. This can turn on the frequent unique requirement of having a landmark while not completely clunking up your deck. Finishing off our final set of commons is the Korgan Informant. With the introduction of more types of counters and a major focus on boosts and whispers, Informant can muck up your opponent's plans while still providing a good body to take an advancement. As with most Yzmir cards, Informant's viability will be highly dependent on the meta we are currently in. As we move on to rares, I want to start with a card that might end up being more flash than substance. Rare Sap Infusion will bank additional boosts while in reserve that can be split amongst your characters however you choose. Seems great in Ephanis, right? It should be, but it does feel like you might not always get great use out of the upgrade. Because Ephanis can struggle to keep many characters on board, there might not be much difference between the common and the rare in most cases. Still, I want to highlight the rare as a card to watch out for in the upcoming meta. Our other 2 rares are cards that we've already talked about in other factions, Scribbling Starfish and License Withdrawal. Starfish is a great low-cost body that can potentially draw a card, and License Withdrawal is great removal. While the rare does add a hand cost restriction to counteract its discount, it's still an incredibly strong card that can hit most cards you'll see on your opponent's board. And there you have it. My picks for the most meta-relevant cards to keep an eye out for in the Whisper season. Do you agree with me? Did I forget a card that is so obvious it makes you question the validity of the whole list? Will you use this against me in the future to prove that I'm a fraud and know nothing about the game? Let me know in the comments. While I hope you found this informative, I'll settle for it to be entertaining to laugh at my bad takes. Thanks everyone for watching. This obviously came out later than I wanted, but I hope you still enjoyed it. I almost scrapped the video and went straight into deck guides, but since this was tied for first in the little poll I did, I figured I should get this done first. I'm testing Cool Rank Stall a lot right now to make a guide. That will be the next video I make, unless there is some big news or reveal that happens in the meantime. I've also been testing out Arak All Zeros and Atsadi, but let me know what you're playing in the new set and what you might want me to build. As one final thing, I was recently interviewed on an episode of Hero's Guide to Asgartha and had a great time talking with them. Great people and great content, so if you haven't already checked them out, there's a link in the description. That's all for now, but I hope we see each other again.